You've been put into carbon freeze. What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. It's funny that actually it leads into something I wanted to show you. This is only one Kenobi, by the way. Only one. I want to talk about Han Carbonite as being a future I want to talk about Han Carbonite or Carbonite Han as a future vintage collection card back and figure. And that leads me nicely onto Boba Fett. I did show you and talk to you about the Power of the Force card back a while ago, and this is a custom recard I've got of a Boba Fett who looked quite nice on that card actually. But anyway, why show you this? Well, the reason I'm showing you that is because Han Carbonite originally was part of the Power of the Force. I believe the last 17 or the last 19, last 17. So where do I begin with this? Well, I'll firstly show you this Black Series 2013. I believe we got given that. Anything that came in the Black Series, I've said this before in my videos, I'm going to say it again, that anything that was Black Series was fair cop for being on a vintage card, and it obviously didn't go on a vintage card, it got onto a Black Series card back because the vintage collection had finished. So I'll show you what it looked like on card back. That's the line I mean, the TIE Fighter pilot line. And I'll go back to that figure again in a minute. It was a great figure, but it would just look great on a vintage card back. Power of the Force then. Well, back in the 80s, the last 17, Han did arrive on shelves or wherever via the Power of the Force line. I'm going to go off on a little tangent now and talk about that card back. Do we want to see that in the vintage collection? It would be quite interesting if they were to re-release the last 17 on Power of the Force cards, but I don't know. Preferably, I would sooner see a Han Carbonite come out on a standard vintage. So that could be either Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, because he was in Carbonite in both of those movies on that chase. You know, the movie badge at the top with the chase around the outside. But anyway, yeah. So Han originally came in the Power of the Force line. That's the best image I could find online, by the way. All the bubbles have yellowed so bad on that figure. It's interesting. Or on this one here. I could not tell you what cards. I mean, I don't remember seeing these in shops, and we're in the UK here. I'm in England, but I don't remember cards looking like that, to be honest. I just remember them being like that, but I presume we would have got those because that's got trilingual. So you would have maybe back in the day had that. I never owned a Han back in the day in Carbonite. I had a friend who did, and I always wanted one and never got one. But anyway, so going back to the future of him, well, as I say, there's a really good chance you could get him, or they could repack, re-release this on a vintage card, and it was fantastic. This was a really good. The figure I'm not so fussed about because I'm more bothered about that, and this is an excellent Carbonite block. I had heard a few people moaning. I think it was Sith Lord 229. I sort of remember certain things I hear people say, and I'm pretty sure it was him who said that he was disappointed that the back was empty, or you couldn't put anything in the back. Personally, I'm not really that fussed about stuffing a figure in the back of that because he is just a block. That is Han inside that. So I think maybe what he meant was that on other figures that you could maybe hang it. Look, moving on to another thing now. You can't hang that on a wall. Maybe get blue tack or something and stick it on a wall if you were doing a diorama like that for Jabba's Palace. That brings me on to, speaking of Power of the Force 2, or was this... I think it was Power of the Force 2. This is the 90s steroid figures. Now here he is. Speaking of putting figures inside, you could put this figure inside, which is fair enough. That's what I do. I've just got this out of storage anyway, just to show you. This wasn't a bad Carbonite block as well, but this one is vastly superior. Slightly thinner. Maybe this was wider to accommodate that bulky figure in the back, but thought I'd show you that one as well, just to give you an example of two releases. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the 80s ones to show you what the sculpts were like on them. I do believe they had a black Carbonite block that was part of the Slave 1, as far as my research has shown. But and that was research I did a while ago, by the way, when I was looking into buying a few for myself. But yeah, that's not a bad one. But yeah, this video is all about this one. Can we get that repacked? I would certainly like to see it repacked. Maybe if they change their head sculpt, really, because that ain't the best head sculpt. And speaking of good Han head sculpts, when are they ever going to learn or get it through their thick skulls, man, that this was the best Han head sculpt right here? This is the best Han, and we haven't seen it come back. I don't know, maybe that's not your preference, but I've always thought that the VOTC Han was nailed back then and they never repeated the head sculpt. But it ain't bad, that one. But anyway, the point of this video is get it on a vintage card. It would be amazing. And Images, well, that'll do you. Just a bog standard, nicely lit Han on Carbonite would do nicely with either a Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. In fact, let me know in the comments, what would you prefer on the badge? Empire or Return? Doesn't really matter, does it? As long as it's on a vintage card. This has been Only One Kenobi. Only one. Out. Oh, they've encased him in Carbonite. He should be quite well protected. If he survived the freezing process, that is. And as you can tell, I can't do an impression of C-3PO. Can you, Mike? Oh my God, I've forgotten your surname, man. Mike Poi. Oh my God. I think I'll just end this video now. He's a subscriber of mine, a Canadian dude. He's amazing. Really makes me laugh, and I've just forgotten your name temporarily. I'm really sorry. Take care. Only One Kenobi. Out.